Tonight, midterm bound. Democrats are hoping legislative policy wins in Congress will stave off a November crash.
By the time we get to November, I think people will take a look and say, did this help me?
Plus, a sign of the times. The Fed's free at-home COVID test is coming to an end. And a glimmer of recognition.
I'm so shocked that the world is just sitting by and watching. The Chinese government has absolutely no shame about this.
A new UN report finally details the plight of the Uyghur people in China. All this and more on Faith Nation. Could presidential policy wins help Democrats come November? Thanks for joining us for Faith Nation in Washington. I'm Tara Mergener. With just over 2 months now until the midterm elections, the Biden administration is hoping a recent uptick in policy victories will give Democrats much needed momentum. But some in the GOP beg to differ. CBN News White House correspondent Abigail Robertson has more in tonight's top story.
Now that President Biden finally has a few policy victories to tout, he plans to use them on the campaign trail to make the case why midterm voters should send more Democrats to Washington next year.
We must be stronger, more determined, and more committed to saving America than the MAGA Republicans are destroying America.
In recent weeks, Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act, forgave billions in student loan debt, reinforced protections against deportation for DACA recipients, and signed executive orders to expand abortion access.
It's our job to get the message out, but if we do, I think it will help.
Representative Ro Khanna tells CBN News he believes these moves will boost Democrats in the midterms and that the party should support Biden's bid for a second term.
He has led well. He has passed the American Rescue Plan, the largest infrastructure bill since Eisenhower, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to bring manufacturing back to the country. So he will have my support.
Tyler Lee, a GOP candidate running for Congress in North Carolina's 12th district, believes the opposite.
What the Democrats are legislating right now is certainly helping us for November 8th.
He claims voters aren't on board with policies like forgiving student loan debt.
I have not heard one voter yet, even on the Democrat side or unaffiliated, say that they're for this. I think everyone is aware that it's just so bogus what they're doing and trying to buy themselves votes, but it's just not flying in District 12.
Lee says personally, he plans to pay off his student loans and doesn't support the debt forgiveness.
Some people decide to go to college, some people don't. And it's just not fair to make someone else pay for something that I chose to do.
Inside Elections' Nathan Gonzalez tells CBN News what matters is how voters feel about Biden's policies 2 months from now.
Ultimately, I think it matters whether these policies help people in their daily life. It's not just enough to pass something. By the time we get to November, I think people will take a look and say, did this help me? Does this help me in my daily life? And until we get there, we're not going to know the answer.
Despite recent policy accomplishments, many polls still show low approval ratings for President Biden, making Democratic candidates in swing states hesitant to campaign with him. We'll see if any stand with him Thursday during his Pennsylvania visit. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
President Biden's approval rating did get a big bump in August. That's according to a new survey from Quinnipiac University. It finds the president's approval hit 40%. That is up 9 points from July's low of 31%. Still, 52% say they disapprove of President Biden's job performance. In just a few hours, the president is set to deliver a primetime address on the so-called battle for the soul of the nation. It'll focus on what the White House sees as continuing threats to American democracy. CBN Washington correspondent Mal Galka joins us now with a preview of what some are calling an unprecedented use of a primetime address, Matt.
Well, Tara, typically in the past, we've seen primetime addresses from presidents during or after events that shake the nation. Think 9/11 or war or major policy announcements or tragic gun violence. President Biden will be using his address tonight to single out what he's dubbed an extreme threat, MAGA Republicans. The White House believes that the Trump-loyal wing of the Republican Party is undermining America's democratic values and warrants a major speech. The administration says it will be an optimistic speech tonight, but also said the president won't back down from the criticism he's already receiving for it.
We understand we hit a nerve. We get that. We understand that they're trying to hide. And we understand that ultra-MAGA office holders want to play games here and dodge accountability for their extreme proposals and actions, but they're just telling on themselves. Look, the president has always squarely targeted his criticism on elected leaders. This is a
President Biden campaigned and won on a message of unification and fighting for that soul of the nation. But the timing of tonight's speech can't be ignored. The midterm elections are in just about 9 weeks, with polling showing Democrats making strides with voters after a rough summer dominated by low approval ratings. Some Republicans feel like the speech is further dividing the country and that this primetime address is nothing more than a campaign speech. A communications professor I spoke to says it's a messaging tactic Biden has used before.
It comes right on the heels of, the raid on Mar-a-Lago and several other things that seem to be kind of gearing up for, we have to get the American public's mind turned away from things like maybe the economy or the immigration situation. And we have to begin to focus in on the fear. You must fear the other party. And that worked well in 2020 for him and for his party.
Now, to underscore how important Pennsylvania may be in the midterms, this is the president's second stop in the Keystone State this week, and he'll make another one on Labor Day. Former President Trump is also holding a rally in Pennsylvania this weekend. Tara?
Matt Galka, thank you. Well, to the economy, new jobless claims are down. According to new figures from the Labor Department, 232,000 Americans applied for new unemployment claims last week, down 5,000 from the week prior. On Friday, the Labor Department will release the August jobs report. Economists are predicting the U.S. economy added about 300,000 new positions last month. Well, for more on those numbers, let's bring in Mark Hamrick, Senior Economic Analyst and Washington Bureau Chief at Bankrate. Mark, let's start with unemployment. Another week of lowering new claims. What's that say about the state of the economy?
Well, let's focus first of all on the state of the job market because there's a lot going on with the broader economy. The job market remains surprisingly strong from the perspective of job security and workers sort of looking to see what their prospects might be with respect to hiring or just holding on to the job they have right now. These new jobless claims fell back to a level that we saw about a month ago, and continuing claims, which is a measure of those who are receiving benefits through traditional state programs, are about half the level they were a year ago. And as you pointed out, we do have a monthly employment report coming up. But the main thing that's weighing on consumers' minds these days is, of course, the high state of inflation, the sustained level of high prices, as well as the fear of a recession.
Yeah, definitely. Tomorrow's jobs report, as you said, predictions say about 300,000 new jobs were added in August. So, what are you expecting to see out of this?
First of all, most forecasters don't have a high level of confidence in making prediction about this forthcoming reading simply because it's such a volatile time. And the job market has probably outperformed expectations this year. Coming into this report, we've averaged 471,000 jobs added a month. That's almost, I would say, 220,000 jobs a month more than we would have seen before the pandemic. So the question is, should we prepare for a leveling off of hiring in the United States? And that is the widespread expectation, not only with respect to this next report, lower number of jobs added, unemployment rate sticking at 3.5%, but on down the road, it's expected the job market will weaken in the face of higher interest rates.
So the latest numbers show a good amount of job openings. We've got this low unemployment. We've got this high inflation, so much going on. What does all this mean for interest rates going forward, do you think?
Well, we're about 3 weeks away from a Federal Reserve meeting. There is no doubt the Federal Reserve wants to get interest rates substantially higher from here. And indeed, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and his colleagues have basically put a target on the job market's would-be back, saying it's too tight. They don't like this mismatch between the supply of jobs that are open and the lack of supply of workers.
All right, Mark Hamrick, thank you so much for your insights as always.
Thank you.
All right, if you want the U.S. Postal Service to deliver free at-home COVID tests to your door, tomorrow will be the last day to get them. The Biden administration is pausing a program it's been using to provide free tests over congressional funding, though it could resume if Congress does provide more money. So that news comes as the FDA grants emergency authorization for the next round of COVID booster shots. They're aimed at protecting against the BA4 and BA5 subvariants of the Omicron strain, which makes up about 99% of all new cases. All right, so let's bring in Lori Johnson, CBN News medical reporter. Lori, the FDA did not wait for clinical trial data before granting these new boosters emergency authorization. Why is that?
Well, really, Tara, they didn't have time to do the human trials because the Biden administration asked drug companies back in June to go ahead and reformulate some boosters that are strain specific to what's circulating now. And so that was back in June, and the Biden administration wanted them ready by the fall, which the drug companies did deliver. Now, they did do some studies on mice. As far as the human trials are concerned, those are ongoing, and we should get the results of those by the end of the year. But really, from a medical standpoint, health officials aren't that concerned about the safety aspect because these vaccines are so similar to the ones that hundreds of millions of people have already been taken. They've just been tweaked a little to be more strain specific to those Omicron strains. Really, the big question is going to be how well do they work? Do they really work that much better than the other vaccines at protecting against COVID or serious, severe infection?
And that said, as we head into the fall and winter, what can we expect when it comes to COVID cases?
Well, you know, as the weather gets colder, we all sort of move inside. And so we're together in small spaces and confined spaces. And that really just increases the risk of transmissibility. And a lot of those COVID mitigation measures, the masks and the distancing, have been released. And a lot of people have relaxed those and really don't see that coming back very much. So there's a very good chance that we'll see COVID on the rise. We typically do, especially around the holidays. January after the holidays is traditionally a very bad month, not just for COVID, but the flu season also is expected to be much worse this year than the last couple of years.
Right, and things seem to be constantly changing when it comes to COVID. So what symptoms should folks be looking for when should they get tested? When do you quarantine? Break it down, if you would.
So the thing about COVID is the symptoms are very similar to the cold and the flu. You know, most of the cold viruses are actually coronaviruses. So we're talking about things like a headache, sore throat, cough, achiness, fever. You know, there are two symptoms that are kind of specific to COVID-19, which is loss of taste and loss of smell, but not everybody has those symptoms. So if you don't know what you have, you can always take that home COVID test, and really you can just call your doctor on the phone and say, hey, I tested positive for COVID. And a lot of times your doctor will call in a Paxlovid antiviral prescription, so you don't even have to go to the doctor's office. That Paxlovid has been proven very, very efficacious for people over the age of 50. If you still feel bad and you tested negative for COVID, you might have the flu, in which case go to the doctor, get tested, and there are antivirals like Tamiflu and others that can help you with that as well. So stay safe this winter. There's a lot going around.
Yeah, there sure is. Speaking of that, how about the flu? I've been thinking about getting my flu shot. It's right about that time. How bad is the flu expected to be this year? We don't hear much about that anymore.
That's right. You know, 2 years ago, the flu was almost non-existent, and last year it was very weak, presumably because so many people were wearing masks and isolating. But this year it's expected to be much more severe. We've seen that in the southern hemisphere, which is usually a harbinger of what's going to be happening here. So the flu shots are going to be available. It's supposed to come on earlier this year, so doctors are saying the best time to get a flu shot is anywhere from mid-September to the early part of October. It takes 2 weeks to kick in and lasts for 6 months. And remember, sometimes the flu is really circulating in March and April.
Oh, so much to consider. We're going to miss summer. Lori, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Is China committing crimes against humanity? The new report outlining the atrocities in the communist country when Faith Nation returns.
Introducing the CBN Bible from cbn.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN News Watch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN News Watch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
The Millsburg Falls man come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Turning overseas tonight, China's treatment of Uyghur and other Muslim minorities could constitute crimes against humanity. That is the conclusion of a newly released United Nations report. The exact number is unknown, but upwards of 1.5 million religious minorities are being detained in what China calls vocational and educational training centers. But according to the UN, the centers are marked by, quote, patterns of torture and other forms of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Beijing says the report is based on lies fabricated by anti-China forces. Frank Wolf is a former congressman from Virginia. He currently serves as a commissioner on the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. Congressman Wolf, you have spent your career fighting religious persecution around the world, including authoring the International Religious Freedom Act. Have you ever seen anything like the atrocities unfolding in China right now?
This is about as bad as it can be. This is genocide. Genocide is a very powerful word. There's genocide against the Muslim Uyghurs. And with this report, which almost did not come out, the world ought to wake up. The world ought to do something about it. There's torture, there's tiger chairs, there's even reports that next to the concentration camps, there are crematoriums and they're taking organs out, kidneys, heart, cornea out. And after that, the person dies and they take him to the crematorium. So it is shocking. The world ought to wake up. Now, speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for you, sir, on this. There are actually some Washington lobby firms here in the nation's capital that are representing the Chinese interests. So this ought to wake up the whole world. There ought to be sanctions. Something ought to be done because we basically see genocide. And if the Congress doesn't act, if the UN doesn't act, it will be shame on them.
So disturbing. The UN report is critical of the situation in China, but it does fall short of calling it a genocide like many others have. Did they miss an opportunity, do you think, on that?
They did miss an opportunity because clearly any expert that you talk to, they will tell you this is genocide. Call a Holocaust museum. Call Greg Stanton, a Genocide Watch. This is genocide. So they did miss an opportunity. But, you know, there was an indication the other day that maybe this report wasn't going to come out. This was literally released. There was great pressure on the person who wrote the report, literally released as she was walking out of the building. But yes, I think they did miss an opportunity. But we all know what's taking place. I mean, I've heard people who have been in these camps tell us what's in these camps. So I think the Congress has to act. The Biden administration has to act. The UN has to act. All Western governments have to act, because if we don't, this thing will continue and many, many people will die.
When you say act, what do you think the U.S. should actually do to fight this?
Sanctions against them. I mean, frankly, again speaking, there should be no Washington lobbyist that lobbies for these companies. Visa restrictions. Anyone connected to any of this ought not be allowed into any Western nation, certainly not into the United States, but not into England or France or anybody that's part of the UN. And then we need to speak out, and then we have to put sanctions on many of the products. There are some products, and I'm not going to mention the companies, that are actually made. There are reports that textiles, clothing are coming in, being sold on the market in the West. So very aggressive, tough sanctions. The world now, this was a report that almost didn't come out, and they were trying to shut it down. The Chinese were. Now it's out. The world has to act, and the Congress should take the lead, and the Biden administration should be there too.
Quickly, you served as a USERV commissioner. You actually do right now. How is the commission working to shed light on the situation?
Well, the commissioner's been on the front. They have recommended, and I now hope the administration does it, that China be considered a country of particular concern. They call it a CPC designation. That's the highest designation that you can give. So USERV has spoken out about it. Hopefully the administration will make it a CPC, but I think the Congress now has to pick up. USERV can make recommendations, and they do great work. They make a lot of good recommendations. But now the Congress has to take those recommendations, implement them, put them into law, and the administration has to enforce them.
So important. Frank Wolf, we do appreciate your time and all your work on this really crucial issue.
Thank you. Genocide, genocide, genocide committed by the Chinese government. Thank you.
Thank you. A city in crisis, the latest on the water emergency in Jackson, Mississippi, after this.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world-class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Saturday night at 6 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
No end in sight to the water crisis unfolding in Jackson, Mississippi. More than 150,000 people there are still without safe drinking water, and residents are being told to shower with their mouths closed.
We can't drink it, we can't cook in it, and I'm scared to bathe in it.
The eyes of Washington are watching the city of Jackson, and they wanted us to know that we should expect the full arm of support from the federal government.
President Biden has declared a state of emergency in Jackson, with the city unable to produce enough water to fight fires, flush toilets, or meet other critical needs. The city's mayor is hopeful water pressure will be restored within the week. Voters in Michigan won't get to weigh in on abortion come November. Abortion advocates in the state had collected enough signatures to petition for a ballot measure on enshrining abortion into state law. But late Wednesday, the Michigan Board of Canvassers rejected that initiative after a deadlock partisan vote. For the petition to make it to the ballot, 3 board members would have had to approve it. And while the 2 Democratic members voted for it, the Republicans voted against it. Supporters of the initiative say they'll file an appeal within the Michigan Supreme Court. We'll be right back.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link. Tuesday morning at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Finally tonight, fish, frogs, insects of all kinds. Those are the things one might expect to find while exploring underground caves, right? Someone's pet dog, on the other hand, that would be a little more shocking. But that's exactly what happened recently in Missouri. Having been missing for 2 months, Abby, the dog's owners, thought she was gone forever. But a recent rescue by 2 spelunkers changed that. Turns out Abby had fallen into a hidden cave entrance. 12 feet down in a pit she could not get out. Hungry, cold, but safe, she was finally reunited with her family. They are very grateful, of course. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a great night.